I found the box behind a broken feed barrel in my father's barn. It was wrapped in old cloth, tied with a faded piece of string, and hidden beneath loose boards where nobody had any reason to look. At first I thought it was only old farm records, maybe receipts, maybe church notes, maybe something my father had put away years ago and forgotten. But when I opened it, my hands went cold, because the first thing I saw was not a receipt. It was a small child's bonnet, then a bundle of handwritten letters, and underneath them a name I had never heard spoken in our home. Anna. My father was the bishop of our Amish district. People came to him for counsel. Families trusted him. Men lowered their voices when he spoke. Women treated his words with respect. To the community, he was a righteous man, a steady man, a man with nothing to hide. But that afternoon in the barn, I learned that even the most respected homes can have locked doors inside them. And sometimes those doors are not inside the house. Sometimes they are hidden beneath the floorboards of a barn. I was 20 years old then, old enough to work, old enough to court, old enough to court, old enough to understand duty, but not old enough to carry the truth I found that day. At least that is what I believed. It was late October. The air smelled of dry hay, dust, and cold earth. My father had gone with 2 churchmen to visit a family in the next district. My mother was inside preparing food. My younger brothers were helping a neighbor move fence posts. I had gone to the barn looking for an old lantern hook. That was all. A simple chore, a small task, nothing important. But sometimes life changes while you are looking for something ordinary. I moved a feed barrel to reach the wall behind it. The barrel scraped against the floor. Then I noticed one board was loose. Not broken, loose. As if someone had lifted it many times before. My first thought was mice. My second thought was water damage. So I knelt down and pulled at it. The board lifted too easily. And there it was, the box, waiting, hidden, quiet. I should have put it back. That is what I told myself later. A good daughter would have covered it again. A respectful daughter would have walked away. A bishop's daughter would have protected her father's privacy. But curiosity can be stronger than fear, especially when something inside you already knows the truth matters. The lid creaked when I opened it. Dust rose into the air. I coughed quietly and looked over my shoulder, as if the barn itself might report me. Then I reached inside. The child's bonnet was yellowed with age, tiny, too tiny. My fingers trembled as I touched it. Then I picked up the letters. They were tied together with thread. The writing on the top envelope was my father's. I knew his hand. Careful, straight, controlled, just like him. The letter was addressed to a woman named Anna. Not mother, not anyone from our district. Anna. Before I continue, I am curious. Have you ever found something that completely changed the way you saw someone you loved? If you have, or even if you only wonder what you would do, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. I sat there on the barn floor with that letter in my lap, feeling like the whole world had tilted. My father had always taught us that hidden things carried weight. He said secrets damaged families. He said truth must be honored. He said a clean heart had no need for darkness. Yet here I was, holding darkness he had hidden with his own hands. I unfolded the first letter. I will not repeat every word. Some things still belong to the dead and to God. But I will tell you what I learned. Anna had once lived in our district. She had known my father before he married my mother. And from the way he wrote to her, she had not been a stranger. She had been someone important, someone he loved. My throat tightened. At first, I felt only shock, then confusion, then something almost like anger. Not because my father had once loved someone before mother. That was not the sin. People have histories. Hearts are not born on wedding days. What troubled me was the hiding, the bonnet, the letters, the name nobody spoke, the careful silence around one woman's existence. And if you enjoy Amish stories filled with hidden family secrets, quiet mysteries, and emotional truth, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support truly means a great deal to me, and it helps these stories reach more people who care about faith, family, and the truths we carry. I heard footsteps outside the barn and quickly froze. For one terrifying moment, I thought my father had returned, but it was only one of our horses shifting near the stall. I breathed again. Still, fear moved through me. Not fear of being punished. Not exactly. Fear that once I knew this truth, I could never unknow it. I carefully looked deeper into the box. Beneath the letters was a folded piece of cloth. Inside it was a small wooden toy horse, hand-carved. smooth from touch. On its side, someone had scratched 2 initials, A.M., and below that, another name, Miriam. My heart began pounding. Anna, Miriam, a child's bonnet, letters from my father. Suddenly the box no longer felt like an old memory. It felt like a grave without a stone, a whole story buried in the barn where animals slept above it and seasons passed over it. I placed everything back exactly as I had found it. Almost exactly. One letter slipped from the stack and fell open. A single line caught my eye. Just one line, but it changed everything. I did what the church required, but I have not stopped grieving them. Them. Not her. Them. My hands started shaking so badly I could barely fold the letter again. I did not understand yet, but I knew enough to be afraid. Afraid for my father, afraid for my mother, afraid for the quiet life I had trusted. I closed the box, placed it back beneath the loose boards, moved the feed barrel in front of it again. Then I stood in the middle of the barn, surrounded by hay and shadows, feeling as if I had stepped into someone else's life. When I went back to the house, Mother was stirring soup at the stove. She looked over her shoulder. "Did you find the hook?" For a moment I could not answer. Then I realized I had forgotten why I went to the barn in the first place. "No," I said softly. Mother studied my face. "Are you well?" I nodded, but I was not well. Nothing was well. That night, when Father returned home, he sat at the table like always. He removed his hat, washed his hands, led evening prayer. His voice was steady. His words were humble. His presence filled the room with authority. And I sat across from him, knowing there was a hidden box in the barn that might break everything we believed about him. When he prayed for honesty, I almost cried, because for the first time in my life, I wondered if my father's greatest sermon was the one he had never preached, the one hidden beneath the barn floor. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the box, the bonnet, the letters, the name, Anna, and worst of all, that single sentence. I did what the church required, but I have not stopped grieving them. Them, not her, them. The word echoed through my mind long after the house fell silent. My father slept down the hall. My mother slept beside him. My brothers slept peacefully, and I lay awake staring into darkness, wondering if our family had been built on a secret nobody was supposed to know. The next morning, I tried convincing myself to forget everything. That seemed like the safest choice, the most respectful choice, the Amish way. After all, the box had been hidden for a reason. Perhaps some truths were not meant to be uncovered. Perhaps curiosity was the real danger. That was what I told myself while feeding chickens. It was what I told myself while helping Mother knead bread. It was what I told myself while hanging laundry behind the house. But the problem with truth is that once you see part of it, your mind refuses to stop searching for the rest. 3 days passed, then 4, then 5. By the 6th day, I could not bear it anymore. My father had spent the afternoon helping repair a neighbor's buggy. My brothers were hauling hay. Mother was visiting an elderly woman from church. The farm was quiet, and the barn was waiting. I hated myself for going back. Yet I went, straight to the loose board, straight to the box, straight to the life my father had hidden. This time I opened every letter, carefully, respectfully, slowly. The earliest letters were written nearly 30 years before, long before my parents married, long before I was born, long before Father became bishop. At first the letters seemed ordinary. They spoke about weather, family, work, faith, the sort of things Amish people have always written about. Then the tone changed, subtly, almost invisibly. The letters became more personal, more emotional, and one thing became painfully clear. My father had loved Anna deeply, far more deeply than I ever imagined possible. I sat on an overturned bucket, reading words that felt impossible, not because they were inappropriate. They were not. Because they sounded human, vulnerable. Nothing like the bishop everyone knew. Nothing like the confident man who stood before church every Sunday. The man in those letters sounded uncertain, afraid, heartbroken. Then I found the letter that changed everything. It was shorter than the others, only 2 pages. The paper was stained and worn, as if someone had unfolded it many times. The handwriting looked rushed. Unlike the careful writing in the earlier letters, my heart started pounding before I even finished the first paragraph. Anna was leaving. Not because she wanted to, because she had been instructed to leave. The church had become involved. Families had become involved. And something had happened that nobody wanted discussed publicly. The details were unclear, painfully unclear. But one sentence stood out. By the time this reaches you, Miriam and I will already be gone. Miriam. The name from the toy horse. The name beneath the bonnet. The name nobody had ever spoken in our home. Suddenly the pieces began connecting, and I did not like the picture forming in front of me. Not one bit. I searched the box again, this time looking specifically for Miriam. Near the bottom, hidden beneath folded cloth, I found a tiny notebook. Most of the pages were blank, but a few contained notes, dates, names, places, small details. Nothing dramatic, yet enough to suggest one thing. Miriam had been real. A real child, a real person, not merely a memory, not merely a name. My hands began shaking. Because if Miriam had been real, then why had nobody ever spoken about her? Why had my mother never mentioned her? Why had my father hidden evidence of her existence beneath a barn floor? And most importantly, what exactly had happened? The answer came sooner than I expected. That evening, while helping Mother prepare supper, I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. Without thinking, I said the name aloud. Mother, did you ever know someone named Anna? The room instantly changed. I saw it happen, like a candle being blown out. Mother froze. The spoon stopped moving. The soup stopped being stirred. Even her breathing seemed different. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she turned slowly toward me. Her face had gone pale, very pale. Where did you hear that name? My stomach dropped. Immediately, because I knew then. She knew. She had always known. I tried speaking. No words came. Mother took one step closer, then another. And for the first time in my life, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Not concern. Fear. Leah, she whispered. Tell me where you heard that name. The silence between us felt enormous. I wanted to lie. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to protect Father. I wanted to protect myself, but none of those things were possible anymore, because the secret was already awake, and secrets rarely go back to sleep. When I finally spoke, my voice barely rose above a whisper. I found something in the barn. Mother closed her eyes, as if she had been expecting those words for years, and when she opened them again, I knew my life was about to change forever. Because whatever happened to Anna and Miriam, my mother knew the truth. And for the first time, she looked ready to tell it. Mother sat down slowly, not because she was tired, because the strength seemed to leave her legs all at once. The kitchen felt smaller, quieter, heavier. Outside, the evening sun was sinking behind the fields. Inside, neither of us spoke. For a long time, I remember watching her hands. They were trembling. I had never seen that before. Not once. My mother was the calmest person I knew. The kind of woman who remained steady during storms, funerals, difficult harvests, and family troubles. Yet now, simply hearing the name Anna had shaken her. And that frightened me more than anything I had found inside the box. Finally, she looked up. Did you read the letters? I nodded. Her eyes closed briefly. Not angry, not surprised. Just sad. Very sad. Then she asked, did you tell anyone? No. A small breath escaped her lips. Almost relief, almost grief, maybe both. For several moments she stared out the window. Then she whispered something I never expected. Your father never stopped blaming himself. The words hit me like cold water. Not because they answered my questions, because they created new ones. Blaming himself for what? Mother's eyes filled with tears, real tears. The kind people fight to hide. The kind that come from wounds that never fully healed. Then she told me a story I had never heard, a story almost nobody in our district knew, a story buried beneath decades of silence, before my father became bishop, before he married my mother, before he was the man everyone respected. He was simply a young Amish man in love, and the woman he loved was Anna. According to Mother, they had planned to marry. Everyone expected it. Their families approved. The future seemed certain. Then tragedy arrived. The kind of tragedy nobody plans for. The kind that changes lives forever. Anna gave birth to a baby girl, Miriam. But Miriam was born with severe health problems. The nearest medical help was far away. Resources were limited, and despite everyone's efforts, the child lived only a short time. I felt my throat tighten. Suddenly the tiny bonnet made sense. The toy horse, the grief, the letters, everything, Mother continued quietly. The loss destroyed them. I could hear pain in her voice. Even after all those years, Anna blamed herself. My heart sank, because mothers often do, even when they should not, even when tragedy is beyond their control. For months after Miriam's death, Anna withdrew from everyone, family, friends, church, even my father. The grief became too heavy, too complicated, too painful. Then one spring morning, she left. Not secretly, not in scandal, not in shame. She left to live with relatives in another state, far away from the memories, far away from the tiny grave, far away from the life she could no longer bear to look at. My father wanted to follow. Mother said that quietly, very quietly, as though the truth still hurt. He wanted to leave everything, the church, the farm, the district, everything, but Anna refused. According to her final letters, she believed staying together would only keep reopening the wound. She wanted distance, a fresh beginning, a chance to survive, even if it meant surviving apart. Years passed. My father remained. Anna did not return. And eventually my father met my mother. I looked at her carefully. Did you know? Mother nodded. Before we married. That surprised me. Not because she knew, because she accepted it. She smiled sadly. Your father told me everything. Then she laughed softly, the kind of laugh people use when remembering difficult years. I think he expected me to say no. I could almost picture it. The young man from the letters. Heartbroken, honest, certain his past would frighten away any future. Instead, Mother chose compassion. She chose understanding. She chose him, not despite the grief, including the grief. The realization changed something inside me. Because all week I had imagined a secret scandal, a hidden betrayal, a double life, something dark, something shocking. Instead, what I found was something far more human, a broken heart, a lost child, a grief that never completely disappeared. That night, after supper, I finally spoke with Father. The conversation happened in the barn, the same barn where I found the box, the same barn where the secret had waited beneath the floorboards for decades. Father stood silently while I told him everything. The letters, the bonnet, the notebook, the questions, everything. When I finished, he did not seem angry, not even surprised. Instead, he looked tired, as though he had been carrying a weight for 30 years and suddenly realized someone else could see it. Then he walked to a workbench, opened a drawer, and removed a small photograph-sized frame, except it did not contain a photograph, only a pressed wildflower, carefully preserved behind glass. Anna picked this. His voice barely rose above a whisper. For a moment, he looked like the young man from the letters again. Not the bishop, not the leader, just a father remembering another life. I waited, then finally asked, "Why did you hide everything?" He stared toward the barn wall for a long time, then answered, "I wasn't hiding her." I frowned. Then why? His eyes filled with tears, the first tears I had ever seen from him. Because every time I opened that box, he paused. I remembered Miriam. Suddenly, I understood. The box had never been about Anna. Not really. It had been about a little girl who never grew up, a little girl whose father never stopped missing her. That realization broke my heart. Because grief does not always disappear. Sometimes it simply becomes quieter, older, hidden beneath years of responsibility, beneath church titles, beneath marriages, beneath new families. But it remains. My father died 7 years later. The district remembered him as a wise bishop, a faithful husband, a respected leader, and he was all those things. But whenever I think about him now, I think about something else. I think about the box, the bonnet, the toy horse, the letters, and the love of a father for a child he lost long before I was born. What I found in my bishop father's barn did change my life forever. Not because it exposed a scandal, not because it revealed a crime, not because it destroyed my image of him. It changed my life because it taught me something important. The people we admire most are often carrying grief we know nothing about. The strongest people have scars, the wisest people have regrets, and even the most respected fathers sometimes spend a lifetime mourning someone they never stopped loving. Before I continue sharing more stories from my life, thank you for being here. If you enjoy Amish stories filled with hidden family histories, life lessons, and emotional truths, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support truly means a great deal to me, and I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever discovered something about a loved one that completely changed the way you saw them? Thank you for listening.